Hey everyone, welcome back.
It's Erica here.
I'm Shane, and we're ready for another deep dive.
We love Kecia's Tour Life blog. It always takes us on the road with her to these incredible music and travel experiences.
Yeah, and this one's a real head scratcher. At first, she went to a planetarium.
But not for a show about stars.
Oh, really?
It's something called Beautifica 360.
Okay, so my first thought is like Pink Floyd laser show in a planetarium, but that's not quite it, right?
Not even close. Kecia describes it as a totally immersive experience designed for deep relaxation.
Hmm.
So we're talking visuals projected onto the dome, but the music's the real deal here. A soundscape created for a specific mood.
Hold on, this was her second time going to this thing. Keisha's always jetting off to a new festival or a concert. Something about this must have really hooked her.
Exactly. And knowing Kecia, it's got to be more than just lying back and looking at pretty lights. This sounds like it taps into something deeper.
Well, let's talk about the mastermind behind this whole thing.
Yeah.
Who is this James Hood guy?
He's got quite the resume. Kecia mentions he's a composer percussionist, and get this, a founding member of the Pretenders.
No way that James Hood, the band's legendary and their sound is so distinct.
Right. So it makes you wonder how that background translates into creating this super chill, immersive experience. Did he bring any of that Pretenders energy, or is this a total departure?
I'm really curious about that. Okay, so we've got the planetarium setting a soundscape masterminded by a rock legend. But what was it actually like to be inside Beautifica 360? What did Kecia say?
There's this one part in her blog that really stood out to me. She describes how inside the planetarium time seemed to slow down. She felt completely transported.
Okay, that's interesting. I can see how the darkness and the dome could play into that feeling.
Yeah.
But did she talk about any specifics? What in the music or visuals created that sense of being transported?
She's a little vague on the exact content, but she does talk about surrendering to the experience, letting the visuals and sound just wash over her.
So it's not just about passively watching and listening. You're actively engaging with it, letting it pull you in. That reminds me of, those sensory deprivation tanks. Like your brain's got to find something to latch onto when you're cut off from external stimuli. Maybe it's similar here.
That's a really interesting connection. Maybe the planetarium becomes a sort of canvas for the mind, and Hood's soundscapes guide you through this internal journey, and his background, who knows what kind of sonic tricks he's got up his sleeve.
I love that idea. It's not just entertainment. It's almost like a guided meditation. But through music and visuals, I'm starting to get why this resonated so much with Kecia. It's like self-care, but on a whole other level.
Exactly. And I think she really emphasizes that she talks about feeling rejuvenated, like she'd been on a mini vacation, even though it was just a couple of hours in a planetarium.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. But a planetarium for self-care, that's not the first place this brings to mind.
Right. It challenges our assumptions about what these spaces are for. We usually think of education science, not necessarily this deep personal experience.
And it makes you wonder, if a planetarium can be used for this kind of thing, what other unexpected places could offer that same sense of peace and restoration? Did you imagine going to like a museum and having a similar experience, or even a library?
It's a really cool idea, and it goes back to that idea of Hood using his skills to create something totally unique. It's like he's taken the familiar and flipped it on its head, and that makes me even more curious about the specifics of what he did. What were those sounds? What kind of visuals? How did he use the planetarium space itself?
Okay, you've convinced me. I need to hear more. Did Kecia give any more details about the actual content?
Let's see. Yeah, there's a part where there's a part where she talks about the visuals. She mentions these swirling colors and patterns that felt like they were moving in sync with the music.
Okay, so we're not talking about like pictures of planets or constellations. It's more abstract than that.
Exactly. And I think that makes sense, given what we know about Hood's background as a musician. He's probably thinking about this more like a visual symphony than a traditional planetarium show.
That makes total sense. But here's the thing. I've been to planetarium shows, and they often use pretty epic music, classical stuff, film scores, sometimes even modern electronic music. So what makes this soundscape so different? What did Hood do that no one else has done before?
Well, Kecia doesn't go into a ton of technical detail, but she does describe the music as being very layered and textured, with a lot of subtle shifts and changes that kept her attention. She mentions feeling like she was being enveloped by the sound, almost like it was a physical presence.
Whoa, okay, that's way beyond your typical soundtrack. I'm thinking binaural beats, maybe some subliminal frequencies woven in, things that are working on your brain without you even realizing it.
That's a great point, and it speaks to the intentionality behind this experience.
Mhm.
Hood clearly put a lot of thought into not only the music itself, but how it would interact with the visuals and the space to create this specific feeling.
It's almost like he's hacked to the planetarium, right?
Mhm.
Turned it into this giant instrument for manipulating your mood and state of mind.
It's brilliant, really, and it makes you think about how we could use sound and space in other ways to create these kinds of transformative experiences. Imagine if you could walk into a museum and have a customized soundscape that enhanced the art or even altered your perception of it.
Okay, now you're just blowing my mind, but it totally makes sense. We're so used to thinking of art as a visual thing, but sound can play such a huge role in how we experience it. I mean, think about how a movie score can completely change the emotional impact of a scene.
Exactly. So why not apply that same principle to other art forms? Imagine walking through a sculpture garden and hearing music that interacts with the shapes and textures of the sculptures, or visiting a historical site and having soundscapes that transport you back in time. The possibilities are endless.
Wow. Yeah, this is making me rethink the whole idea of what art can be and how we can experience it. But let's circle back to Beautifica 360 for a second. You mentioned Kecia talking about feeling rejuvenated and like she'd been on a mini vacation. Do you think that's something everyone would experience, or is it more
Yeah.
specific to her personality and lifestyle?
That's a really good question. I think it's probably a combination of factors. On the one hand, Hood has clearly designed this experience with relaxation and restoration in mind. But on the other hand, Kecia is someone who's constantly on the go, so maybe she was just extra receptive to that feeling of stillness and peace.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like if you're already super stressed and burnt out, even a short break can feel like a huge relief.
Right, and I think that's an important point to highlight. This isn't necessarily a magic bullet that's going to instantly cure all your stress, but it could be a valuable tool for finding moments of peace and rejuvenation, especially if you're someone who finds it hard to slow down and disconnect.
So it's not just about escaping from the world, it's about returning to the world with a renewed sense of energy and focus.
Exactly. And I think that's something Keisha is trying to convey in her blog post. She's not just sharing an experience, she's encouraging her readers to seek out similar experiences, to find those moments of peace and restoration that can help us navigate the challenges of everyday life.
I like that it's like she's saying, look, I'm out here on the road, always pushing myself, but even I need to take time to recharge. And she's found this really unique and unexpected way to do it. I think that's really inspiring.
It is, and it reminds us that self-care isn't selfish, it's essential. It's about nurturing ourselves so that we can show up fully in the world.
And it's not just about grand gestures or expensive retreats. It can be as simple as finding a couple of hours to immerse yourself in a planetarium experience that allows you to disconnect and recharge. Or, who knows, maybe a museum or a library someday.
Right, it's about finding what works for you, what brings you a sense of peace and helps you reconnect with yourself.
Which brings us to a really important question for our listeners. Where do you find peace? What experiences help you reconnect with yourself?
That's a great question for everyone to ponder. It might be something as simple as taking a walk in nature, listening to your favorite music, or spending time with loved ones.
Or maybe it's something more unique, like attending a Beautifica 360 show. The point is to find what resonates with you and make time for those experiences that nourish your soul.
Because ultimately, that's what self-care is all about, finding ways to replenish our energy and cultivate a sense of well-being.
And Keisha's blog post serves as a wonderful reminder of that. It's a call to action, to prioritize our own well-being and seek out experiences that bring us joy, peace, and a sense of connection.
And remember, you don't have to travel far and wide to find these experiences. They can be right in your own backyard, waiting to be discovered.
So take a cue from Kecia and explore the world around you with an open mind and a curious heart. You never know what hidden gems you might find.
And don't forget to share your own discoveries with us. We'd love to hear about the places and experiences that bring you peace and rejuvenation.
Absolutely. We're all on this journey together, and sharing our experiences can help inspire and uplift one another.
So keep exploring, keep seeking, and keep nurturing your own well-being. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself.
Well said. And on that note, we want to remind everyone that you can follow Keisha's journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
And of course, be sure to check out her blog at keishastourlife.com.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Beautifica 360 and the importance of finding peace in unexpected places.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep seeking, and keep nurturing your own well-being.
See you next time.